Hello everyone and welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator. My name is Blake Nelson. Something different today. I have been into flight simulation for a very long time, even before I started learning how to fly. I used to play different mobile flight simulators like X-Plane 10 Mobile, Infinite Flight, Aerofly FS, basically anything that I could find in the App Store. That was actually part of what got me interested in aviation. So when I actually began learning how to fly, I started to take flight simulation a lot more seriously, especially when it came to my instrument training. At that point, my grandpa and I decided to invest in a real flight simulator to use as an aid in my flight training. Not that it classified as an FSTD or anything that could be used to log time in, but just to be used as a really great aid to my flight training. I used it a lot throughout my training, which was awesome. It proved to be very realistic and helpful, and I would definitely recommend it for anybody who is going through flight training, especially instrument training. With that being said, it has since become a hobby to me as much as anything, and I'm excited to be sharing that with you guys for the first time. So today, we are going to be flying the PMDG Boeing 737-800 from Kansas City over to St. Louis. I pretty much have the airplane all ready to go. As you can hear, the APU is already running, and everything up in the flight deck is basically ready to go. We just need to go through the before start checklist, and then we'll be ready to push back, start up, and get out of here. So let's climb up into the flight deck, and I will show you guys what we've got going on. Welcome aboard the Boeing 737-800 by PMDG Simulations. This airplane is absolutely awesome, and there is no overstating that. Now, please keep in mind, I am not a 737 pilot. I'm not an airline pilot. I'm not even an ATP. I'm a commercial pilot and a CFI. I fly Cessnas and Pipers, so by no means is this airplane up my alley in the real world, at least right now. But I have enjoyed learning it and flying it in the simulator. It's been a really fun challenge. And even at that, I am still new to the airplane, even within the simulator. So just keep that in mind. So basically, I've got everything ready to go up here in the flight deck. Like I said, before we do the before start checklist though, I do just want to step you guys through our flight plan so you have an idea of what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be doing the Lakes 3 departure out of Kansas City. It's actually the Lakes 5 departure in the real world now, but this is not completely up to date. So Lakes 3 departure is essentially radar vectors to our assigned route, which in this case, we're not using ATC or anything today, so we're just going to clear ourselves direct to the Napoleon VOR. That's Alpha November X-ray. Then from there, we're going to go to Frank, and then Columbia. We're doing the Columbia transition on the departure. And then from Columbia, we're going to be going direct to Kayla to join the Kayla 3 arrival into St. Louis. So then we'll go from Kayla, we'll go to Big Mac, then Denise, Albert, Stan. Then that's the end of the arrival. Then from Stan, we'll fly direct to Satin, which is the initial approach fix for the ILS runway 12 right approach into St. Louis. And we will intercept the localizer and fly the ILS runway 12 right approach, like I said, into St. Louis. And we have the missed approach procedure in there should we need it. So that's our flight plan. The top altitude on the departure is 10,000 feet, so that's going to be our initial altitude, assuming we're going to be climbing via the SID. So we'll go to 10,000 feet, but again, we're not using ATC or anything, so after departure, I will clear myself up to flight level 290, which is our cruising altitude for today. So that's what we're doing. Now let's proceed with the before start checklist. So before start, parking brake set. All right, and chocks removed. Go over here to FS actions, and I'll do it on the pushback page since that's what we're going to be doing next. Chocks removed. Takeoff briefing is reviewed. We pretty much just did that with you guys, so that's good. Coming overhead, packs will go off for engine start. Anti-collision light goes on. Transponder, go alt off. Like so. Engine area will be clear. We're getting pushed back, so they'll take care of that for us. Lower display unit is on the engine page, and we can request pushback and start. Straight out, yep.
Cockpit to ground.
Before start, checklist complete.
Go ahead. We've been cleared for pushback and start, tail straight out. Roger that. Ready for push straight back. Brakes off.
Release the brakes for them.
Brakes released.
All right, engine start checklist. Pushback, we will start. Duct pressure looks good. Ignition looks good, and as soon as they start the pushback, we will turn engine number 2.
Brakes released. Here we go.
All right, here we go. Engine number 2 going to ground. First thing we're looking for is that start valve open, and then into rotation here. Looking good, and we're looking for 25% N2, and then we will introduce the fuel. 22, 3, 4, 25. Introduce the fuel. There's light off, fuel flow. EGT is rising. We have oil pressure, and we have N1 rotation. I'm just monitoring the engine, making sure that it continues to spool up and that we don't get an over temp on the EGT. Looking good. There's the end of our pushback.
Pushback complete. Parking brake, please.
Parking brake set.
Brake set.
There was kickback. Start valve closed, and it will temp out at 594. And now it's coming back down.
Alright, steering pin is disconnected. Watch for the slip and release from guidance on your left. Have a good flight.
Alright, thank you guys. Alright, that's a good start on engine number 2, and we will put engine number 2 in continuous for departure, and engine number 1 is going to ground. Alright, 2 good engine starts, and we will put engine number 1 to continuous for departure. And yes, engine start checklist complete. Before taxi checklist, we'll go generators on, and we'll go to Gen 1 up there. APU off, APU bleed off. Packs, go to auto, isolation valve, auto. Probes can come on. Engine anti-ice is not required. Flaps set, we'll do flaps 5. Flaps 5 on departure. Verify flaps 5 selected, and we'll look for that indication on the flap gauge right there. Flaps 5 is selected. Trim, this is about the 3rd time I've checked it, but trim is set for takeoff. Flight control is free and correct, so we'll go to the system, and we'll do our flight controls check. So left aileron, and we also see that left flight spoiler come up. We want to see that. Okay. And right aileron goes up, left one down, and that right flight spoiler goes up. Back to neutral, elevator goes up, neutral, elevator down, neutral, rudder left, neutral, rudder right, neutral, and we will check for free movement as well. Alright, good. Flight controls are free and correct. That's good. Recall check. Good. Lower display unit is off. And we can do the TCAS test. Right there. TCAS is being tested. And we are basically ready to taxi. So we'll go taxi light on.
TCAS test passed.
TCAS test passed. That's good. All right, release the brakes. And we are cleared to taxi. before taxi checklist complete. Taxi checklist, we'll want to check the brakes. We'll start rolling forward here. First thing you want to do, all right, brakes are good. And then all the flight instruments, everything's looking good right now. And everything is indicating properly in the turn. Flight instruments are checked, steering is working well. And we check the brakes, and the first officer check the brakes. Brakes are good. Taxi checklist complete. We are going to runway 19 left for departure. Approaching runway 19 left, we will hold short and do our before takeoff checklist. Alright. And we'll set the parking brake. Before takeoff checklist, parking brake is set. Auto throttle armed. Center fuel pumps, they are off today because we don't have any fuel in the center tanks. So center fuel pumps are off, and we want them off. Anti-ice is not required. That is all off. Cabin lights are as required. They're good. Flight instruments checked and set. All the flight instruments look good on both sides, and they were checked during the taxi, so that's good. Engine instruments. Check the engine instruments here. Everything looks okay. That's good. All right. Takeoff data is all on. Yes, got all the V speeds on the airspeed tape. So takeoff data is checked. Nav equipment is all good. It's already been checked. It's all good to go. And we are ready. Before takeoff checklist is complete, except for the runway items, which we will do when we are clear for takeoff. All right, we are clear for takeoff, so we will come overhead. Go landing lights on, runway turnoff lights on, strobe and steady. Transponder to TARA, and traffic on. Release the brakes, and we'll start the clock in just a moment. We are clear on final. Runway is clear. We are clear for takeoff. Runway 19 left. Line it up, and I see a 19 left. Identified, line up on center line, and 19er looks good. Start the clock. And we'll bring the power up a little bit so the engines come up nice and stable together like so, and we'll go toga. Takeoff power, be 97.4 N1, takeoff power set, fuel flow is good. Airspeed's alive.
8 knots.
Cross check. We're pretty light today.
Rotate. Positive rate of climb.
Gear up. Alright, looking good. LNAV, VNAV. And we'll follow that flight director starting our turn. Accelerating now. Flaps 2. Flaps 1. Rolling out of that turn. Flaps up. Alright, and autopilot's coming on. And we'll do the after takeoff checklist. Positive rate, landing gear is up. Auto brakes off. Engine start switches off. Gear lever goes off. Flaps are up now. Autopilot is on. LNAV and VNAV are both on. And runway turn-off lights and taxi light off. And cabin lights are as required. After takeoff checklist is complete, and we are cleared now to climb and maintain flight level 290 for our cruise today. 290 set. Looking good on our climb, 250 knots. And we'll center up our heading bug as well. Coming up on 10,000 feet, and we will do the climb checklist. So there's 10,000 feet, passing 10,000 feet, landing lights off, seatbelts, we'll go to auto now. Yep. Center fuel pumps are off. Again, we don't have any fuel in the center tanks, those are off. Anti-ice is all off. Climb checklist is complete, except until we get to 18,000 feet, and we'll reset the altimeters. Until then, climb checklist is complete. The airplane is accelerating now, and we've had a good departure out of Kansas City. We are in our left turn now from Napoleon over to Frank, and there's 18,000 feet, so we will reset the altimeters to standard pressure, standard, and standard, standard. Altimeters are set, and climb checklist now is complete. Looking good on our climb, and we're getting a pretty good push, as you can see as well. Ground speed's 435 knots. True airspeed's just over 400 still in the climb, so looking good, and we'll be cruising before you know it. Alright, coming up on our top of climb here, leveling off at flight level 290. So we can do the cruise checklist. So engine instruments, we'll give those a peek real quick. Everything is looking good. Fuel flow looks good. Everything is looking good on the engine. Fuel quantity is checked. That looks good, what I would expect at this point. Lights are as required. Yep, they're all good. And center fuel pumps are off. Again, there's no fuel in the center tanks. Cruise checklist is complete. Alright, I just had some time, so I went ahead and briefed the ILS runway 12 right approach into St. Louis that we're going to be flying. And so I got the localizer frequency set in both nav radios, and the approach course is set on both course selectors. We're also a little less than 30 miles from our top of descent, so we can do the descent prep checklist. So first we'll get the weather at St. Louis. Wind 210 at 7, visibility 10, broken 1700, broken 2800, overcast 6000. Temperature 2.09, altimeter is 3011. So what we can do is set 3011 right there and here, 3011, and then when we cross through 18,000 feet, we just have to hit those two buttons. The altimeters will be set to 3011. So we have the weather, altimeters are set, radios are set. Again, we're not using ATC, so I'm not really worried about it. MCP altitude reset. So we're gonna descend via the Hala 3 arrival. I'll go ahead and set 7,000, the MCP altitude. That's the lowest altitude we will get to at Stan, which is the final waypoint on the arrival. So that is set. So the MCP altitude is set. FMC approach speed ref will come down here. What we'll do, go here. We're going to be flaps 30 landing, so I'll grab that, put it there. And we'll have that there. Localizer frequency set, ILS localizer course is set like I just showed you guys. So that will be good. So descent prep checklist is complete and the approach is briefed. So looking good, always staying ahead of the airplane. And we will be descending here in just a few miles. We just started our descent into St. Louis. So we can start looking at the descent checklist now. So anti-ice is all off, don't need it, at least right now. Landing altitude is set to touchdown zone elevation, which is 540, so 550 is as close as we can get, that's set. Recall, check. Good. And I went ahead and set up our baro minimums on the approach. So those are set. Center up our heading bug. So baro minimums are set. Auto brakes for landing. Our gate is basically on the other side of the airport from where we're touching down. So I'm honestly just going to do an auto brakes 1 landing and we'll kind of roll it out. And that way it'll be a shorter taxi for us to the gate. So auto brakes are set and descent checklist is complete until we get to the transition altitude, and then we'll reset the altimeters. Alright, passing through our transition altitude now, we will reset the altimeters. And I'm just going to double check. The St. Louis altimeter is 3011. 3011. 3011. 3011. Altimeters are set. Descent checklist is good now until 10,000 feet. coming up on 10,000 feet, and the airplane is slowing below 250 knots. So 10,000 foot descent checklist, speed is below 250 knots. The landing lights come on. Seatbelt sign goes on, and descent checklist is complete. Alright, so after crossing Stan, we can descend and maintain 4,500, and we will cross Saturn at or above 4,500, and then be cleared for the ILS runway 12 right approach into St. Louis. So that looks good. I have the ATIS, the altimeter set. I have briefed the approach. The avionics are set, and the airplane will be put into the approach configuration as we get closer. Alright, we are 5 miles from Saturn, and we are set to cross Saturn. It's like at 5,351. We'll be intercepting and be at or above 4,500 feet at Hawley. So looking good. Once we cross Saturn, I will arm the approach on the autopilot. Everything is looking good right now. And we can start looking at the approach checklist here. So we got the altimeters set. The localizer frequency 109.7 is set on both. Localizer course is, 123 on both. And we will arm the approach momentarily. Alright, cross Saturn. I'm going to go and arm the approach. So we go into VOR localizer. The airplane will intercept the localizer, and it's going to continue descending on the FMC down to 4,500. Then it should level off until it intercepts the glide slope. There's 4,500 feet. Glide slope is armed on the autopilot, as you can see, so it should capture. Flaps 5. Slowing down nicely. Flaps 10. There's glide slope. You're down. Flaps 15. Alright, landing gears down. 3 green. Flaps 15 are set. Speed brakes are armed. Second autopilot armed. Engine start switches go to continuous. And we get our runway turn-off lights and our taxi light on. And flaps are set for now. And landing checklist. Go around altitude for the published mist is 5,000. Got that set. Runway turn-off lights are on. Taxi lights on. Landing gear check down. We have 3 green. Autopilot is as required, looking good for now, and before landing checklist is complete. There's our final approach fix. Turn, there's no turn, not worried about time. Twist is done, powers as needed, and tog. We are cleared to land runway 12 right. Alright, I am going to go auto throttle off and autopilot off. Landing flaps. And I'll set VREF in here, which is 135. That's set. And we can start slowing it down. Landing flaps are set. Landing gears down. 3 green. We are cleared to land. Runway 12 right.
1,000.
1,000 above. Slightly high, slightly left of the localizer. We have a bit of a crosswind from the right, as you can probably see. Ref plus 15 right now. That sound you are hearing right there, that's the elevator trim wheel spinning as I am retrimming the airplane. Alright, we can start slowing it down pretty fast here actually. And we don't want to get high either, like we are, so we'll reduce power. There we are.
Approaching minimums.
Looking good.
Minimums.
Continue. And we're pretty fast. Turn it back, a little bit of
100.
a side slip.
50. 40.
There's VREF, power's off.
20. 10.
We get that center line back. There we are. There's touchdown. Fly that nose wheel down, reverse thrust, and keep her on center line. Reverse is cleared. And 30 knots. Auto brakes off. Alright, we will clear the runway and do the after landing checklist. Getting the entire airplane clear of the runway. And after landing checklist, transponder goes to alt off. Like so. Traffic, we will push or off. Flaps up. Flaps are up. Speed brakes down. Landing lights off. Taxi lights and runway turn-off lights are good. We can go ahead and turn the runway turn-off lights off. We don't really need them. All right, that's good. And strobes go to steady. I can get that click spot. Cabin lights are as required. Anti-ice is all off. APU start. Like so. Probes can come off. Engine start switches go off. Auto brakes are off. Flight directors can go off. Lower display unit can go back to the engine. And after landing checklist is complete, we will get the APU gens online when they're available. Alright, turning into the gate, we'll go taxi light off. And we don't have any marshalers or anything, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the outside view here. Make sure I get it right on the line. Like so. All right, parking brake set. And coming overhead, we'll go APU gens on. Oops, APU gens on. And we'll go to the APU up there. When we turn off lights and taxi lights are off, APU gens are on. We're on the APU up there. APU bleed can come on. And parking checklist. Parking brake is set. Parking brake is set, and engine fuel control levers cut off. Those are off. Overhead, anti-collision light can go off. Full chocks set. Down here, we will get the fuel chocks set. And ground connections established. We'll want a ground power unit, and we can get the jetway out here for the passengers so they can deboard when we're ready. There it goes. It's good. Passenger signs. Turn the seatbelt sign off. Yaw damp off. Fuel pumps. We'll turn these off. We'll leave the number 1 aft fuel pump on for the APU. Ground power can go on now. And we'll go to ground power up there. And we'll go APU off. And we turn that fuel pump off now. Engine start switches are off. Double check. Electric hydraulic pumps off. Isolation valve open. APU bleed off. And we can get the engine bleeds off as well. And transponder goes to standby. Like so. And parking checklist is complete. Well, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this short flight from Kansas City over to St. Louis in the PMDG Boeing 737. If you did, please let me know. And I would really appreciate your feedback on this one, especially because it was something new. And if you'd like to see more flight simulator content in the future, let me know. And if so, let me know what you'd like to see. And if I enjoy making this video, then I think we will definitely expect to see more on the channel. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you someday soon.